Dr. Evelyn had always been obsessed with finding the cure for all diseases. Her ambition was insatiable, and she worked tirelessly in her laboratory, day and night, to create the perfect virus. And finally, she succeeded. However, her victory was short-lived when she realized that the virus had an unintended effect. Instead of curing diseases, it turned humans into bloodthirsty monsters. "What have I done?" Evelyn muttered to herself as she watched the creatures roam around the lab. They were once humans like her, but now they were unrecognizable with their elongated limbs, razor-sharp teeth, and glowing red eyes. "We have to get out of here," her assistant, Alex, whispered, his voice shaking with fear. "Those things are going to kill us." Evelyn hesitated. She knew that the virus was her responsibility, and she couldn't just abandon her creation. But as the monsters grew more aggressive, she knew they had to leave. "Follow me," she said, leading Alex to the back door. They sprinted through the dark, empty corridors, but the creatures were fast and relentless. "We have to find a way to stop them," Evelyn said, catching her breath. "We can't let this virus spread to the outside world." "But how?" Alex asked, his face pale and sweaty. Evelyn paused, thinking of a plan. Suddenly, an idea came to her. "The virus needs a catalyst to activate," she said, rushing back to the lab. "We need to destroy the catalyst." Alex followed her, confused but hopeful. Evelyn searched frantically for the catalyst, but it was nowhere to be found. "Where is it?" she yelled in frustration. Suddenly, a deafening roar echoed through the lab, followed by the sound of shattering glass. "They're here," Alex whispered, his eyes widening in terror. Evelyn knew that they had no time left. She quickly grabbed a bottle of acid and poured it onto the virus sample, hoping that it would destroy the catalyst. But it was too late. The monsters burst into the lab, their glowing eyes fixed on Evelyn and Alex. The acid had only made them angrier, and they charged towards the two scientists. Evelyn closed her eyes, bracing for impact. But instead of teeth sinking into her flesh, she felt a sudden jolt of pain in her chest. She looked down to see a clawed hand protruding from her ribcage, blood oozing from the wound. "No," she whispered, feeling her life slipping away. "I can't die like this." But it was too late. The virus had taken over her body, turning her into a monster just like the rest. The lab fell into silence as the creatures roamed free, their red eyes shining in the dark. And as the virus spread beyond the lab, Evelyn's ambition had unleashed a nightmare that would haunt the world for years to come. Alex stumbled back, his eyes fixed on the monster that had once been his mentor. He knew there was no hope for her now. He turned to run, but a group of monsters blocked his way. He was trapped, with no way out. The monsters surrounded him, their jaws snapping hungrily. Alex closed his eyes, waiting for the end. But suddenly, he heard a loud explosion coming from the other side of the lab. The monsters turned towards the sound, giving Alex a chance to escape. He ran as fast as he could, dodging the monsters that tried to grab him. He reached the door and burst out into the night, breathing in the fresh air. But he knew that he couldn't just leave the virus to spread unchecked. He had to find a way to stop it. As he ran towards the nearest town, he heard screams in the distance. The monsters had already begun their rampage. He knew that he had to act fast. He had to find a way to reverse the effects of the virus and save humanity. Hours later, he arrived at a military base, where he begged for their help. They listened to his story and agreed to help him find a cure. Together, they worked day and night, experimenting with different chemicals and treatments. And finally, they found a way to reverse the effects of the virus. But by then, it was too late. The virus had already spread to most of the population, and many had turned into monsters. The military deployed their cure, and slowly but surely, the virus began to recede. But the damage had already been done. Alex looked out at the ruined city, knowing that his mentor's ambition had led to this disaster. He vowed to never let his own ambition blind him to the consequences of his actions. As he walked away from the military base, he heard a faint growling behind him. He turned to see a group of monsters heading towards him, their red eyes gleaming in the darkness. Alex drew his weapon, ready to fight. He knew that the battle wasn't over yet. Alex took a deep breath, steadying himself as the monsters closed in. He knew that he couldn't let them harm anyone else. He aimed his weapon, firing round after round at the creatures. They snarled and leapt at him, but he managed to dodge their attacks and keep firing. Finally, the monsters lay still on the ground, defeated. Alex breathed a sigh of relief, but he knew that there were more out there. He continued on his journey, searching for any survivors and hunting down any remaining monsters. It was a difficult and dangerous task, but he was determined to see it through. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Slowly but surely, the virus began to recede, and humanity started to rebuild. Alex became a hero, known for his bravery in the face of danger. But he never forgot the horrors that he had seen and the mistakes that had led to them. Years passed, and the virus became a distant memory. But Alex never forgot the lessons that he had learned. He continued to work tirelessly to prevent any new disasters, always mindful of the consequences of his actions. And as the world slowly recovered from the horror of the virus, Alex knew that he had done everything in his power to make things right. Years later, Alex sat alone in his laboratory, surrounded by the tools and equipment of his trade. He was an old man now, and his hands shook slightly as he worked. But he still had a sharp mind, and he was always searching for new ways to make the world a better place. He had devoted his life to science, and he knew that he had made a difference. Suddenly, he heard a knock at the door. He looked up, surprised. It was late, and he wasn't expecting any visitors. He got up from his chair and made his way to the door, wondering who could be calling at this hour. When he opened the door, he was shocked to see a young woman standing on his doorstep. She looked familiar, but he couldn't quite place her. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice a little uncertain. The woman smiled at him, and he suddenly recognized her. It was one of his former colleagues, someone who had worked with him on the virus all those years ago. "Hello, Alex," she said. "It's been a long time." Alex's heart sank. He knew why she was there. "I know why you've come," he said quietly. The woman nodded. "I need your help," she said. "There's been another outbreak, and we don't know how to stop it. I remember how you saved us all those years ago, and I thought, maybe you could do it again." Alex hesitated. He knew that he was too old for this kind of work, and he didn't know if he had the energy to fight another battle. But then he thought of all the people who might be suffering, all the lives that could be lost. He knew that he couldn't just sit back and do nothing. "All right," he said finally. "I'll help you." The woman smiled gratefully, and Alex felt a surge of determination. He might be an old man, but he still had one more fight left in him. Alex and the woman worked tirelessly in the lab, trying to find a cure for the new virus. It was a difficult task, and they encountered many setbacks along the way. But Alex refused to give up. He knew that the lives of countless people were at stake, and he was determined to do whatever it took to save them. Days turned into weeks, and the lab became a hive of activity as more and more people joined the effort. Together, they searched for a solution to the virus, trying every possible combination of chemicals and treatments. Finally, they found something that worked. It wasn't a perfect cure, but it slowed the progression of the virus and gave people a fighting chance. Alex and the woman worked tirelessly to distribute the treatment to as many people as possible, traveling from town to town and working around the clock to help those in need. And slowly but surely, the virus began to recede. People started to recover, and hope began to return to the world. Alex felt a sense of pride and satisfaction as he watched the world slowly heal. He knew that he had made a difference, and that his work had saved countless lives. But as he looked out at the world, he also knew that there would always be new challenges and new disasters to face. He couldn't control the actions of others, but he could control his own. And so he vowed to always be prepared, to always be vigilant, and to never forget the lessons that he had learned. As he and the woman packed up their equipment and prepared to leave, Alex felt a sense of gratitude for the chance to make a difference. He knew that there would always be work to be done, but for now, he was content in the knowledge that he had done his part to make the world a better place. As Alex and the woman made their way out of the lab, they were met with a group of people. It was a group of survivors who had been cured thanks to Alex's work. The survivors looked at Alex with gratitude and admiration, knowing that they owed their lives to him. One of them stepped forward and spoke up. "Thank you," she said, tears in her eyes. "We thought it was the end, but you saved us. You gave us hope." Alex smiled warmly at the woman, his heart filled with pride and satisfaction. "It was my pleasure," he said. "I'm just glad that I could help." The woman nodded, still overcome with emotion. "You're a hero," she said. "A true hero." Alex shrugged off the praise, feeling a little uncomfortable with the attention. He knew that he had just done what he could to help, no more and no less. But as he walked away from the lab, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. He had faced down a horror that had threatened to consume the world, and he had emerged victorious. He knew that there would always be new horrors to face, but for now, He was content in the knowledge that he had done everything in his power to make a difference. And as he looked out at the world, he felt a sense of hope for the future. Despite all of the darkness and despair, there was always a chance for redemption and renewal. And he knew that he would be there, ready to face whatever came his way, with courage, determination, and the knowledge that he had the power to make a difference. As Alex and the woman made their way out of the lab, they heard a faint rustling sound coming from behind them. They turned around to see a figure emerging from the shadows. It was one of the infected, still struggling to cling to its humanity. Its eyes were wild and its movements were erratic, but it seemed to be trying to communicate something. Alex stepped forward, cautiously approaching the infected figure. "What is it?" he asked, his voice gentle and soothing. The infected figure stared at him for a moment, its eyes flickering with recognition. And then, in a raspy voice, it spoke. "Thank you," it said, the words coming out haltingly. "For saving me." Alex felt a lump rise in his throat as he listened to the infected's words. Despite everything that had happened, there was still a glimmer of humanity left in this creature. He reached out and gently touched its shoulder, a gesture of compassion and understanding. "You're welcome," he said softly. "We did what we could to help." The infected figure nodded, its eyes flickering with a mix of gratitude and sadness. And then, with a final burst of energy, it turned and ran off into the night, disappearing into the darkness. Alex watched it go, feeling a sense of bittersweet sadness. He knew that the infected creature was still a danger to others, but he also couldn't help feeling a sense of compassion for its struggle. As he and the woman continued on their way, he thought about all of the lives that had been affected by the virus. He knew that there would always be challenges and dangers in the world, but he also knew that there would always be hope. And he vowed to always be there, ready to face whatever came his way, with courage, compassion, and the knowledge that he had the power to make a difference. As Alex and the woman made their way out into the world, they saw a faint glimmer of sunlight peeking over the horizon. The dawn of a new day was upon them, and with it came a sense of renewal and possibility. Alex turned to the woman, a smile on his face. "We did it," he said. "We saved the world." The woman smiled back at him, her eyes shining with pride and admiration. "We couldn't have done it without you," she said. "You're a true hero." Alex shrugged off the praise, feeling a little embarrassed by the attention. But deep down, he knew that he had done something important, something that had made a difference. And as he looked out at the world, he felt a sense of hope and optimism for the future. Despite all of the darkness and despair, there was always a chance for redemption and renewal. He knew that there would be new challenges and new horrors to face, but he also knew that he was ready for them. He had faced down the greatest threat that the world had ever known, and he had emerged victorious. And with that knowledge, he walked out into the world, ready to face whatever came his way, with courage, determination, and the knowledge that he had the power to make a difference.